Hello, welcome back to Recovery Demystified. I'm your host, Early. I'm so happy to have y'all here today. If you have not found your place in addiction recovery quite yet, if you're feeling a little bit lost, guess what? I'm coming back for you. You're not left behind anymore, okay, dear? Today, I'm really excited to talk to you guys. I have another few books and podcasts to talk about, but man, my mind was racing on the way here. I have like about a 45-minute drive to town from the cabin in the woods that I live in, and I was thinking about a lot of stuff, but one of the things that really inspired me a few weeks ago at one of our support groups, there was this participant who was like, then I was out picking strawberries with my friends, and then I realized that I was really behind on all this stuff that I needed to do, and I need to learn some time management or something. And I listened, took it in, and then after that group, I sat and thought about her and that statement for several weeks until I saw her again, and it just really, it planted the seed inside of me. I was like, the conclusion that I came to about all of that is picking strawberries with your friends is the absolute best management of your time that you can have, because you're alive and you're human, and that's an authentic connection to each other and plants on the earth and fucking food in your body, and picking strawberries is the perfect use of your time. And capitalism has got us all fucking brainwashed to think that the only efficient use of our time is completing tasks and making money and bullshit like that. And I feel like that added stress to our lives has a huge effect on people's self-medication with substance use. It affects our view of ourselves. It affects our self-worth. And it's bullshit. And I'm so proud of everyone for surviving in the world that we're all born into. What's expected of us is so fucking chaotic and silly and nonsense. And I hate it. Man, if you're listening right now and you're just surviving and making it through all of this, you're a badass motherfucker, and I love you. And I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, I just man, my mind was racing about that. And I was also thinking about it's Pride Month. There's a bunch of big protests and stuff going on. And I intentionally have not gone to any big protests because I'm man, I'm fucking trans and queer and autistic and disabled, and my fucking survival is my protest. And I know that the crowd that I draw on the podcast or whatever is sort of people that are kind of like me, because it's awesome to hear your voice reflected in a public space and be validated and shit. So if you're fucking queer, if you're disabled, if you're in any intersectional, historically marginalized group, we're all marginalized as people who have addictions because we're stigmatized the fuck of by society. So I'm just going to invite you to try this on for size, that your survival is enough and you're a fucking badass just for existing and being here. And I fucking love you, and you're doing a great job. Go pick strawberries. Go fucking fuck time management and work and commitments and shit. Obviously we have to do a certain amount of that, to be able to survive and not experience too much other stress in the other direction. But get after some creative expression. What did addiction steal from you? Steal it back. What did capitalism steal from you? Steal it back. Listen to music till your ears bleed, and look at the clouds in the sky until it makes you cry. Get connected back to your creativity, to the world around you, to nature, to other people. And that is that's my protest. You know what I mean? Not that marching in the streets is anything wrong with that, but my survival's my protest, and your survival's your protest, and I'm fucking proud of you, and I think you're a fucking badass for being alive right now. All right, let me put my soapbox down, put the soapbox away. Thanks for tolerating all of that. Speaking of all y'all that are listening to this, I'm just so grateful and so amazed and proud that anyone ever pushes play on this. I'm alone in a booth talking to a microphone, so I can't see you guys, but I know you're there. And yeah, to those of you that hit play the second the episode drops every Tuesday, I'm super grateful for you. It's so cool. And to anyone that listens to the interview episodes that wants to tell their story up on this podcast, please holler at me, because I've been getting a few people from the internet that I've never met before, and it's an amazing experience to be able to talk to y'all. It helps me out, changes my life. It makes me just, I don't know, So proud, but thank y'all for listening. Anyway, I'm going to talk about some books and podcasts again because, as I've said before, books and podcasts saved my fucking life in recovery. As y'all know, AA felt like a pile of hot garbage for me, and that shit didn't work. And then when I found Quit Lit books and podcasts, I just started absorbing all this information like a sponge. I was empowered. I loved neuroscience, and I love hearing people's stories and hearing the resilience of the human spirit. And all of that shit has sunk in, and it just made me feel so much stronger in my recoveries. And I'm really excited to share all these different resources with y'all. I don't know how long I can do a monthly book and podcast list for. I'm just tearing up books. Like, I love these books, but I've sort of got burned out on listening to recovery podcasts. I just like to listen to music in my car right now. I'm in a music phase. Maybe I'll get back to the self-help podcast shit after a bit. But yeah, kind of running dry on the podcast side of things. But books, man, I can just eat a book alive, I'll tell you what. And that is something that addiction took away from me that I stole right back. When I was a kid, I fucking loved reading. I was a voracious reader, and I'm glad to be getting back into that. Anyway, the first book on my July reading and podcast list 2025 is called Not Drinking Tonight, A Guide to Creating a Sober Life You Love by Amanda E. White. And I think that just like thriftbooks.com was like, maybe you would like this book too, or something. I don't even, like, when it came in the mail, I was like, I don't remember buying this. But I'm kind of shocked at how good it is. It came out 2022. She's a licensed therapist. Her like handle or whatever on the cover is at Therapy for Women. So, I had to go in it right away and be like, oh, Therapy for Women, is she turfy? And there's not like clearly trans positive stuff in it, but there's like references to like queerness and stuff. So I'm going with she's not turfy because I haven't seen any of that. But the book, it's like she's covering so much stuff in here. And we've been working on this certain part in our support groups, which is reparenting. That's something I'm doing in therapy right now. And so, like, a lot of us have attachment wounds from childhood that gave us a bit of childhood trauma that is a factor in us developing addictions over time. And society doesn't teach people how to parent. Like, maybe our parents were doing the best they could. Maybe they were fucking off and not doing the best they could. But we're grown-ass now, and we can reparent ourselves, and we can teach ourselves skills of, like, emotional intelligence and emotional tolerance and mindfulness and all sorts of other self-care, boundaries, learning about your emotions. She's like going over so many different topics in this book. And what's cool about it too is that she has little conversation elements to it where it's her in the therapist office and going through like a problem with a client, and you might see yourself reflected in her conversation with her clients. And a lot of times I prefer to read books that are by people who have also struggled with addiction and not just, I'm an addiction expert because I'm a medical professional and I went to college. And she also did struggle with addiction and an eating disorder. So she knows what's up, like she's been through it. And doing this reparenting thing in the support group has been really cool and really eye-opening and, low-key triggering, maybe high-key triggering also too, because, some of us have our mommy and daddy wounds and that shit is trauma and that is painful. But we are there with each other and we can help each other out in the group, and it's so sweet. This book is great. She doesn't talk to you like you're dumb. Like, that's another one of my problems with a lot of books written by medical professionals. They talk to you like you're fucking stupid as fuck. And she talks in a way that anyone can understand, but not like you're dumb. So thank you for that. There's evolutionary psychology. There's what alcohol does to your brain, shame, trauma. She just goes into a ton of different topics, and I really love it. One of my only complaints with this book is that she has these journal prompt question types of things, and there's even one in the first chapter that she refers to as a questionnaire, but it's a list of fucking 40 super intense questions. I was like, girl, this is not a questionnaire. This is something it would take you a year to get through with your therapist. You know what I mean? And some of the questions are potentially, depending on where you're at in your growth and healing, could be just intensely triggering. A lot of stuff in this book, it's a good introduction to a lot of things, but also, super intensely triggering topics. And for that reason, I would say if you are new in recovery or new in therapy, looking inside of yourself and you haven't been doing that and you maybe don't have the strongest foundation in that, this is a great book to crack open with your therapist and have someone be able to process it with you in a healthy way, because there is a lot going on here. It's very heavy. I mean, it's not very heavy, but it potentially can bring up topics inside of you and body memories and whatever that could be very heavy. I mean, she nails it. It's great. So, Not Drinking Tonight, A Guide to Creating a Sober Life You Love, Amanda E. White. Thank you. Next on my list, I have Karamo, My Story of Embracing Purpose, Healing, and Hope by Karamo Brown. This one, I was literally just walking around Dixon Street bookstore, with my mom just staring at everything for hours. If y'all have never been there, you've got to go. And then this one just popped out at me and I was like, Purpose, Healing, and Hope. That sounds like an addiction memoir. I never heard of this guy because I don't have TV and I'm very disconnected from pop culture. But Karamo Brown is apparently on Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, which I have heard about. I think that was still on TV even when I was in high school. But his book, it's not entirely an addiction memoir. There is an addiction section that is pretty rough, and he explains how he got through it. And it's one of those where I'm kind of amazed at rich people with addictions. I know I've said this before because it's and then I could just have as much cocaine as I wanted because money is not an object. And I'm fuck, what's it like? Almost sometimes it's worse to be rich with an addiction because there's no filter on, you can just have whatever you want, So I kind of feel for them, rich people, on that. But the book, so what makes it cool is it's about his whole life, and there's all of these intersections of all sorts of different complexities of things. People not understanding his name, people in the church rejecting him for being gay, and he was a gay child, but he didn't even know what gayness was or understand it, but he was being reprimanded for whatever, gay behavior. But then later, he liked the church because of the community and shit, and I guess he's into being Christian or whatever, which some people are. And so it was him fighting for his place, being no, I'm going to be gay wherever I want to be gay and get after it. You know what I mean? So there's that story of him fighting to be gay wherever he wants to be, which for him is the church. And there's also stories about colorism because he's a Black man. So there's the complexity of that in his life. He talks about the cycle of abuse, which I'm just hell yeah, that is it's a thing that is just so taboo to talk about because no one wants to admit they've abused someone. And also for some reason, it's so hard for people to admit that they have been abused. And so I just love to see people talking very openly about this, which he does. And he talks about, him being abused in his life, him abusing his partners, and then how he worked through that to heal and become a better person. And I guess the only thing I didn't really like about this book is it's very matter of fact. It sort of reads like a book report or a school assignment instead of a lot of these memoirs I read are just fucking gripping page turners. But the content is good enough in it that I was still continuing to want to read it, but just the writing style is not the most gripping. But it's a great book, covers a lot of intersectional topics, and then there's a section about addiction and recovery in there. So I would recommend Karamo by Karamo Brown. And the last book on the reading side of things here is In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate, I didn't want to read this book at first. I've read it years ago, but I didn't want to read it at first because I used to have a big thing against, I'm a doctor who's an addiction expert. I've had personal experiences with doctors in my life that were very bad. And if I'm going to take the time to read a book, I want to read a book by someone who's been through it, who has empathy, who went to the school of life instead of fucking college or whatever. So I didn't read this book for a long time, but then I would always hear Paul Churchill on the Recovery Elevator podcast be like, addiction expert Gabor Mate, blah, blah, blah. And he said it enough times that I was like, okay, fucking fine. I'll check this book out. And also Gabor Mate went to the same ayahuasca retreat center that I did. And I was like, okay, maybe he's an all right dude. So this book, Gabor Mate, is an addiction doctor in Canada, and he deals with a lot of the most extreme populations, like homeless people that are strung out on like hard drugs or whatever. And what he emphasizes in his studies of addiction, of where he thinks it's all coming from, is back to childhood trauma. And I'm also not really interested in myopic views on anything. I'm not like, oh, everyone has an addiction because they have childhood trauma. And he's not so basic with it or whatever, but it just kind of seems like he's exaggerating in that direction. I'm like, addictive substances are addictive, right? Like nature, nurture, all of that stuff is involved. But just to be like, oh, 100% of people that get an addiction are simply because of the childhood trauma. To me, that's no. But is childhood trauma a very strong factor in it? Yes. So that is basically like what he's arguing, is that if we look back in people's childhoods, okay, what have I heard him say before? I've heard him say, like, when we're connecting with our parents in a healthy way as a child, we get endorphins. And rats in lab studies or whatever, if they're deprived of endorphins, they die. And as human beings, we also need endorphins so bad because we rely on our parents for survival for so long. We're like in that fucking little larval stage where we can't take care of ourselves for so long. So that parent attachment is like immense. It's like it's so important. So when we're not getting those endorphins as a child, our brain develops in this way where it is just like fucking thirsting for this endorphin connection, right? So then a lot of us end up with addiction later in life. The first time we try a substance, it's that hallelujah aha moment. It is that like flood of euphoria, the where has this been all my life, the warm hug, the like love affair with the substance. And that is those endorphins that we weren't getting as a kid finally flooding into our brain. And no fucking wonder people who have a hallelujah moment with a substance get an addiction, right? I'm sorry. That is like, what the fuck? You know, like if you try something and you're like, oh my God, where has this been all my life? Simply because your brain chemistry is jacked because your parents didn't pick you up enough when you were a kid or whatever. No fucking wonder people get addictions, right? And that is a lot what this book is about, talking about childhood trauma and how that affects addiction later in life. I mean, it's been a few years since I read this, y'all. I do remember one thing being so annoying, and I was gonna like strangle this man. He's so smart and I love him, and I don't mean to be so shitty, but he's like, I couldn't keep myself from buying classical music CDs. And I'm like, bitch, okay, he's trying to relate to people with an addiction, but I'm like, I'm sorry, you couldn't keep yourself from buying classical music CDs? Fucking come at me when you can't stop fucking cooking crack. You know what I mean? Like, so that kind of just ground my gears the wrong way. But it's not, I mean, he has his heart in the right place. But yeah, lots of harrowing stories in this one. And a lot of like neuroscience and yeah, just like a very different viewpoint on things. And since I've read this book, I've really warmed up to him, and I actually really like his perspective on like trauma, healing, addiction, and everything like that. We've watched some of his videos on his talks in our support group, and I listened to him recently he was interviewed on someone else's podcast, and I was like, I love this man. Like, I do love him. I think he's got like a really innovative perspective on trauma and addiction and recovery, and he's just a sweet old man. But I would recommend this book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate, even though I was sitting here bitching and complaining about it a little bit. It is a good book. Yeah. So I am getting sick of listening to podcasts. I know I said that before, but I have a few that I'm going to recommend for this month, and then we'll see if I can bring you any next month. So first, I'm going to recommend the Sort of Sure podcast by Samar Carbo. That is the one that I did the replay of my interview with him on a couple of weeks ago. He emailed me out of nowhere and was talking about like imposter syndrome, and yeah, I just went and like binge listened to a bunch of his episodes, and it's just people overcoming hardship and like mental blocks to be able to live fulfilling lives. And they're short little bite-sized like 20-minute interviews, and they're all, I mean, I learn a little bit of something from each one of them. So that is just like, if you just want a little inspo, like a little bite-sized chunk of inspo every once in a while, I would recommend the Sort of Sure podcast, especially just, I think that imposter syndrome is part of the human condition, and it's something protecting us from failure, which is very sweet. So thank you. Whatever part is protecting us from failure, but also, what is the point of life if we never take a risk? You know, what are we going to miss out on? What missed opportunities are there going to be if we let our own imposter syndrome get in our way? So this podcast is cool because you can hear stories of people that overcame that. And also, I know imposter syndrome comes up a lot in addiction and recovery because sometimes, at least for me, for sure, I'd be like, oh, I'm not good enough to get sober. I'm a loser. I'm not capable of doing this. This isn't for me. It's my fate to have live a life of tragedy. Why am I even trying to get sober? So yeah, it's just cool to like, oh, I'm not the only one that has this feeling of imposter syndrome. It's a natural, normal part of the human condition. It's not insurmountable. So that's why I would recommend that podcast. Also, I've listened to this one a few times. It's called Feel Lit. And it seems like it's for like wine moms, which is a thing. I guess it's like mommy wine culture is a big thing. Obviously, being a parent is stressful. Raising kids is hard. And whatever, I guess the wine industry for some reason has stuck their nose in people's lives and been like, mommy deserves wine or something. And it's like a fucking epidemic among mothers. They got their water bottles at the function full of wine or whatever. But yeah, it's just they describe themselves. They're like, we're two ex-wine lovers turned recovery coaches. And yeah, they have guests on. They just like vibe with each other. The sound quality is excellent. From the several episodes I've listened to, it's also like pretty good content, you know, science-based, practical stuff. They'll get listener questions and then they'll sit there and vibe and like answer listener questions about problems people have in recovery. So that one is pretty good. I haven't listened to a ton of it, but I listened to enough where I was like, okay, I think you've met the threshold here where I can tell the people about it. So that's the Feel Lit podcast. If you're a wine mom and you want to plug into that or whatever, you can just be anyone and plug into it. And then last, there is this podcast called Sober as Fuck, which I listened to a while back. And it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a fictional podcast with a bunch of different episodes where it's like a story of someone just being a drunk party girl, I think in like New York City or something, and then realizing that had gone too far. And then she actually gets into 12-step stuff in AA and goes through like all of the, you know, funny stuff, the emotional stuff, the stressful stuff that you go through in early recovery, like just fucking stumbling out of the party and out of the bar and into whatever smoke-clouded basement AA is happening in. And it's funny, it's entertaining. You can't wait to listen to the next episode. But it is fiction. But I don't know. It's good. I think it won some awards or something, but it's worth checking out. You know, it's kind of like listening to an audiobook sort of, but it ain't bad. But the well's running dry, folks, on me recommending podcasts. Maybe I'll get excited about it again, but right now it's done run dry. If you send me an email and tell me what else you're listening to that you think is cool, I'll check it out. But for now, I'm just listening to sad music in my car. So loud that I think my ears are going to bleed, which I highly recommend. Makes you feel human. Makes you feel alive. Anyway, I fucking love you guys. Y'all are the shit. You're surviving, and I'm proud of you. And whatever goal you set for yourself, you can fucking achieve it. Go pick some strawberries. Listen to sad music till your ears bleed. Let your heart feel full. Fuck time management. That's all I got for you. I love you. May you be happy and free. Recovery Demystified is produced and edited by me, Early Brunner. Stevie Petet made our logo. Our social media manager is Kaylee Bausch. Logan Bragg wrote our beautiful theme music. We are entirely supported by donations as a 501c3 nonprofit. Your tax-deductible donations can be made to our Venmo or to our PayPal at Recovery Demystified. May you be happy and free, dear listener.